Hi, this is Sean, and in this lesson, let's talk about how we get from the point of practicing things like scale exercises to actually making them useful in our playing and improvising. And that's an area I think a lot of people struggle with. They either have full-blown improv or they have rudiments, and the two are never meeting. So it's either make it up as you go along and never sound great, or it's just rudiments. So for me, teaching and learning improv is about two main things. Number one is having strategies to build short phrases. And number two is about making connections between chord changes. So this video will be about making the connections. So I'll show you what I would do with one of my students when we're getting into making connections between chord changes using scales and phrases. So let's take something simple, relatively simple. I find that if you can get improv over minor 2/5s like B minor 7 flat 5 to E7 that goes to an A minor. I teach about minor 2/5s, I'll link below. But for that we would use the A harmonic minor scale. Because you see, if I take that A harmonic minor scale, which is really the C major scale with a G sharp, and if I take that from the second degree, I get the B minor 7 flat 5, and if I go from the fifth degree, I get the E7. So 2/5 in A minor is B minor 7 flat 5 to E7. Okay, the A minor 7 has nothing to do with it. That's another story because it's got the G natural on it. We could be in the key of C by now, but playing a 2/5 that leads to an A minor 7. Okay, I talk about that in more depth in other videos that I'll link below. But for now, let's say that if I have that kind of progression, B minor 7 flat 5 to E7, I'm looking to play the A harmonic minor scale over it. So first thing you want to do with your scales is to get some more freedom than just going up and down a scale. Things like 1, 2, 3, and then do that from the next degree. Very simple stuff. And then try and do it with no breaks, so in jazz eighths. And taking, say, 4 notes, 5 notes, and then just reversing a couple of things here and there. For example, if we take 4 notes, and then from the second degree, right? And then the third degree, etc. This is a pretty simple phrase. So let's learn to just reverse the last 2 notes of that. Instead of 1, 2, 3, 4, we'll make it 1, 2, 4, 3. And then from each degree of the scale. Remember that G sharp. Don't mess that up. And now we have enough to start making connections on chord changes. So let's move to stage 2. Let's take one of those things. Why don't we take the 1, 2, 4, 3 that we just played and learn to put it over the whole progression. So what I'm going to do is take it on the B minor 7 flat 5, and let's take any of these B minor 7 flat 5 notes. Let's take the D and let's play that phrase. And then descend the scale and see what happens when we get to E7. That's where people are going to mess up, by the way. It's the knowing where they are in the bar, in the measure, and not losing their place, not losing the time, and still connecting to the next chord. And then I've already got a bit of a problem. I would have preferred to come out on an E7 chord note, which are here and here. So let's find a way to connect. You've got to think time while you're doing it. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. That's a surround note. We've surrounded the note we want to be on with half steps. You see, even though this B flat isn't in the scale, it doesn't matter. We've surrounded that B from the E7 to get us to sound right. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. Surround. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1. Brought us out on the A minor 7 with no problem. So just starting that same phrase from different points in the scale is going to present different problems, okay? Because sometimes it'll come out on an E7 note. It's not that you must all the time, but I think that's a really good way to practice, because then you've got a strategy to connect from one place to the other. So let's see what happens if we take it from a different point. It doesn't have to even be a B minor 7 flat 5 note. It could be, let's see what happens if we start on the C. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1. Came out good on an E7 chord note. Where were we? C. Let's continue down. Maybe something like that. Okay, that's not bad. Let's take one more. Let's take the E. Remember, G isn't in the scale. Brought us out on an E7 chord note. Pretty good. Okay, so that's stage 2. Just picking different points, pick different scale exercises, join them to a descending scale, and make sure you can feel where the time is to connect to the next chord. Now on the next step, we may say, okay, so we have our scale exercise going up, we have our descending scale, but that descending scale is lasting a long time. For example, it's a long time. So let's take this from C again and see if we can switch directions this time. This is what I mean. Now, I don't want to just keep going down here, so that kind of thing. Let me show you how I did that one. And when you do that at speed, it's actually quite pretty. Like that, right? So let's see what we did. We had our 1, 2, 4, 3 pattern down the scale, an extra note to get me to this diminished. Why this diminished? For a couple of reasons. Number one, if you watch my other lessons on diminished voicings with dominance, you'll see this is the diminished that goes with E7. It's the one where you take E7 and you just move the E up a half step. It's this diminished, F diminished, which is the same as D diminished, by the way. That's one reason. Another reason is if we take that A harmonic minor that we were playing, then you'll see that that diminished actually exists in there as well, and it's there to outline that dominant sound of the E7. So let's look at our phrase again. An extra note to get me to the diminished, up it, an exit on an A minor 7 note. Great. Now I would want to do a couple more things to that. I would want to say, what happens if I skip the first note? So it would be like this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. Fine, okay. How about if I put one extra note at the beginning? So it'd be 1, 2, 3, 4, and 1. So if C was the first note, I guess I can put a B under it. 1, 2, 3, 4. Things start to come to life from doing those scales and doing the connections and switching directions. Now I've got a template. I can actually take that to step 3, which is, can I start the same type of template from different notes in the scale? I don't know yet. Let's see. Let's take E as a starting point. Upper diminished. Okay, that will work. That's fine. So let's try that again. I think I went to the diminished earlier than last time, which is fine. That was a nice phrase, but if it was the equivalent, it would be like this. Something like that, right? Or an extra note. That would be the equivalent, really. Even though this G isn't in the scale, it doesn't matter. It became a passing note, a joining note, to join me to that diminished. And then again, I'd practice that with maybe a note cut off. Fine. How about an extra note? 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, not bad. But that's how you learn to make connections. So now you're not just practicing scales up and down. You're not just practicing licks and phrases. You're practicing knowing where you are, feeling the time, making connections, targeting important notes in the chord. And that means that now you're practicing improv, because you can never know what's going to happen when you're improvising live, but you can know that you've done the work to make the connections when they come up, and you'll do your best. And that's what it's about. Hope that was helpful for you. If you like this lesson, then perhaps you'll consider becoming a Jazz Skills member, where we have many more improv lessons, lessons on chord movements, voicings, tunes, all kinds of stuff. So hope you enjoyed that, and see you on the next one. Bye for now.